Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. It's been a while since I've been a dependable regular here on booktube. I've tried to keep my toe in, putting up a video occasionally while I've been busy with other things, and I've also been a guest on Steve Donahue's channel a couple of times, talking about the New York Times book review. If you haven't seen those videos, I'll leave the links down in the description box. I am looking forward to being back on this channel in a more or less regular way soon. But let me spend a few minutes telling you about how things have been going lately and how they look like they'll be going for the next little while. There is a major celebration to share, and there's also some sadder news. Those of you who have watched a lot of this channel may know that I am a survivor of an aggressive kind of breast cancer. I was diagnosed with triple-negative tumors immediately before my son started his freshman year of college. One of my biggest fears was that I might not be alive when my son graduated. The very next year, my spouse David was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer called glioblastoma. It is a terrifying diagnosis with an expected prognosis of only a year or so, if he was lucky, maybe 2. The idea of him seeing our son graduate seemed even less likely. And then COVID hit. Abraham moved home, as all his classmates did, and when the school told them that they would be Zooming into all their classes the next year too, he decided to take a year off. David thought it was even more impossible that he would see Abe march across the stage to receive his diploma. But here we are, almost 5 years after my diagnosis with breast cancer, with no signs of recurrence, and almost 4 years after my husband's glioblastoma diagnosis. I hope you can understand how incredibly happy we were to be able to be at all of the festivities of Abe's graduation, which was about a month ago. And the phrase, all the festivities, is no overstatement. There were 3 days of events. First, I want to say that almost everything was completely outdoors and thoughtfully done in order to be as COVID safe as the school could be. And the weather was stunningly gorgeous all week. When I graduated from college at an outdoor ceremony, there was an enormous rainstorm, but Abraham was far luckier. First, we went to Baccalaureate, where a commencement choir performed. And specific students read a wide variety of religious and ethical texts aloud in a wide variety of languages, from Arabic to Hebrew to Coptic and Chinese and many others. Several university chaplains also spoke. I was really looking forward to the speech by the secular humanist chaplain, but he unfortunately was ill. The Jewish chaplain began by reading out all of the names of the people who had been murdered in Buffalo just a couple of days before. It was a very powerful moment. And when we left the services, we learned that the shooting at the primary school in Texas had happened at almost the same moment. Unbelievably heartbreaking. Abe's peers took a huge class picture that afternoon. And we took some solo shots of our son and his roommate around campus as well. For years, Abe was teased that he looked like Harry Potter. I'll try to remember to link to a viral video where a zillion people make that comment. Anyway, we thought he kind of looked the part again in his robes on this beautiful campus. Abe School is a university with not only graduating college students, but graduate students finishing PhDs, MDs, law degrees, education degrees, etc. Although the official commencement includes everyone, the undergrads also have what's called Class Day, where they get to celebrate in a way that feels a bit more like a small liberal arts college might experience at graduation. It was a lovely day, as was the gathering at the English department, which was the field he majored in, and at his main dorm complex. And on the third day, there was the full commencement, which was absolutely packed. It was so crowded that even though it was outside, I must say I was glad we had on our face masks and that so many other attendees were masked as well. We were sitting in an area where it was hard to see all the faculty members and visiting scholars wearing their wildly colorful academic regalia, but we got to see many of them afterwards on the streets around the university as we walked over to Abe's dorm for a reception and the granting of diplomas. Wildly, Abe didn't get to spend as much time as he wanted to with his fellow graduating seniors or with us. He was doing sound engineering work with a small professional Shakespeare theater in Boston. The job was a great opportunity, which he has really enjoyed, and I hope he isn't too sad that he missed the little bits he missed. After all the graduation festivities had ended, David and I spent a couple of extra days in Boston. On one of the days, we walked around the public gardens in Boston. If you've been a big reader for years and years, you probably know about the public gardens because it features as the setting of the children's book Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. David and I visited the duck statues, which people often decorate in various ways. And which children climb all over and sit on as their parents take pictures. The day we were there, adults were posing on them. We also took a spin around the lake on the amazing swan boats, which attendants paddled around in the water.
And then there's the whole waterfront area. There's Newberry Street.
For those of you who know Boston well, you might realize that being in the public gardens puts one very close to a particular bookstore. With a huge outdoor sale lot. Yes, we went to the Brattle bookshop. And guess who we saw there? We went a couple of times, and I promised to go through all the used books I acquired there in an upcoming video. There are some doozies in that bag, and I can't wait to share them with you. Well, while we were in Boston, David started having increasing difficulties with his foot. At first, we didn't panic. Although glioblastoma tumors can appear anywhere in the brain and they can have an extremely broad range of symptoms, David's initial tumor was in an area that controlled his left foot, making his shoes slap slightly when he walked. After his craniotomy 4 years ago, the symptoms temporarily got much worse, affecting his whole leg, but fairly quickly he regained almost all of his abilities. We worried that the new tiny bit of foot issue might be swelling from the site of his old tumor, and perhaps even a new tumor, but we tried to keep our wits about us. For a couple of weeks, if there was any decline in David's control of his left leg, it was slow and subtle. But about 2 weeks ago, changes started being a bit more obvious to him. He got in touch with his neuro-oncology team, who made appointments for him to get his regularly scheduled monitoring MRI moved up a bit earlier, and scheduled an appointment with his doctor, who would share the results of the MRI the next day. Unfortunately, what we were afraid might be the reason for David's foot issue was in fact the explanation: new tumor growth, which will require surgery. We have been incredibly lucky to have 4 years together with almost no side effects from the tumor or surgery, and there are reasons to be hopeful again this time. David's tumor had a specific profile that meant the cancer was more susceptible to both radiation and chemotherapy. If that is true again, the treatments will also be available to him again. Years ago, David's doctor shared with us that, as he said, the longer you go, the longer you go, meaning that living this long bodes at least somewhat well for having a bit more time. Still, this is definitely scary news in a lot of ways, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to stay with David in the hospital as I did last time. It's a pretty amazing place, complete with a large patient library and other incredible features. In fact, I hope I can give you a little tour of the library. But no promises, I'm afraid. I'm not quite sure how much of our experiences I'll have time to share here. Many of you here on BookTube, some of you with channels, and some who just watch and comment, have become real friends in this strange and special world of BookTube. If you think of me as a friend too, drop me a note on Voxer or by email, address below, and I'll give you info about my personal Facebook page, where I am not active except when sharing health information with our friends and families. You can get regular updates that way if you'd like. All right, I'll be back when things settle down a little, or possibly even while they're crazy. Love to all of you. Thanks for being here. Take care.